All right, guys, good afternoon and welcome to another installment of our 2020 Advanced Insight webinar series. My name is Eric Huber, Product Specialist here at TOA Electronics. And this is our last one for the year. It's been a great year for us when it comes to testing new waters and webinars and marketing and digital marketing and digital advertisement. It's been a lot of fun. So this is our last one, and thanks again, guys, for coming in. And it's covering a topic about the not so obvious system. And it's going to focus on using our products, and I don't want to say unconventional ways, but ways that you guys might not be familiar with. We have a lot of SKUs, a lot of items, and our units are designed to grow with our customers and are very scalable. And our three experts joining us today are going to be touching on, especially our newer items, going the route of IP and different ways you can tie things in. So there's going to be some really cool stuff discussed here. For those of you that are new to TOA Electronics, we are a supplier of quality, durable, and dependable professional AV equipment. And we deliver exceptional sound with solutions in a variety of different industries, mainly commercial industries, as you guys know us for. People, love us for our durability, and I hear it all the time. It works. It works, and we strive to do that. We prepared a brand new video for you guys that highlights our heritage, who we are as a brand, and the industries that we serve. So I'm going to share that with you guys real quick. Let's go ahead and take a look at that video. Congrats on the marketing team on that. It's a great video. Today we are looking at building, again, the not so obvious system. And with me, I have three product and system design experts, internal, that combine experience in the commercial AV industry with more than 40 years. Ian was saying he might only have 40 years on his own. So let's bring that up to maybe 100 years. So let's start off with Ian. Ian has direct experience in building systems in educational and industrial AV and IP systems. Next up, we have Dan Shore, our product and engineering manager that has in-depth expertise on systems design and integration across various industries. Dan adds specific engineering details and how different products fit together across multiple systems. And finally, last but not least, is Jim McGinnis, our most senior systems design engineer. Jim's expertise is identifying products and solutions to design the not so obvious system that can be served across multiple purposes. We all ask that you guys please hold to your questions back until the end of the webinar. You can use the chat in the chat box. If you guys have questions, please make sure you're using the chat on the right-hand side. We'll get to those at the very end. So if we don't answer them right away, please hang tight. And we'll make sure we get to those. And thanks again for tuning in. All right, so let's start there. We'll begin with Jim. So Jim, coming over to you. You've been working in the business your entire career, going back maybe 40 plus years in commercial, professional, and now consumer AV. When it comes to building the not so obvious system, I would imagine that you've had discussions with your clients throughout your career where you've identified new and more efficient systems designs. Can you elaborate on this topic?
Well, sure. We have to take in the information that we get initially from a request, from quote request RFQs, and we have to see whether we have enough information there. And if we don't, we have to go back to the client to get what we need to properly put together a system. So very often we'll get some of the data, but not all of the data. So, sometimes people look at audio systems and other things kind of last minute, and you can't really put together a proper system as a last minute add-on for, $100 type of thing, especially when you see a new building go up and it has multiple floors and they're trying to do, paging or background music or audio, that type of thing. So, key items we want to know is, how many zones we're going to get, what kind of power we're going to need for those areas, and their intended use. Intended use is often a question that's missed from the initial get-go, because expectation is important. So it's not just a matter of throwing audio into a space, it's also how are they going to use it. So, an example might be, you put audio into a church, if it's basic audio, you're just kind of listening to stuff. But what if they want to do performance through the system? So, their choir or something like that is going to be piped through it. Well, that puts in a different set of variables. We have to have enough oomph to make the system go. We have to be able to cover the area. It has to be able to throw the sound to the back of the church. Sometimes you need to add ancillary equipment to get that done, things like that. But we tie that into a lot of our different equipment. And the key is what equipment could initially fit that bill, find out what the details are, and then we may make a hybrid system to fulfill a particular obligation. And both Dan and I deal with this on a regular basis, and we go back and forth with clients until we get enough information, because in the end, we're putting our name on this. So if it doesn't work right, the first thing they say is, well, how come the TOA doesn't work right? It's the first word up because we're the first name on the product. So, we got to make sure it's right just from the get-go.
Absolutely, Jim. Good points. And speaking of Dan, let's go over to you. Can you tell me about a time when you worked with a client in the AV system or with an AV system where the general contractor had laid out what we call a complete disaster. Let's say it was a complete disaster, or unnecessarily complicated, where they're using products where they're not should be used, or they're using too many of a certain product, or vice versa. And how you were able to identify a not so obvious solution or a solution to that issue.
Sure. I can give you two examples. One was a large house of worship system. It was a 10,000 seater, and the general contractor had been hired by the church to put together their systems, and the church had told them where they wanted the camera positions, and the general contractor proceeded to put 1/2 inch conduit to each one of those positions. And when we came on board, we said, well, there were two things. Number one, nobody had let them know that the camera positions that they'd chosen in the far back of the sanctuary were going to require $25,000 worth of lenses at each position. And the general contractor wasn't aware that there were going to have to be some serious cabling in there. So we ended up doing a network solution to that using SGI video. The other solutions that come up are sometimes people get a little bit overboard on their designs. I was working for a company that was asked to look at a system that had been proposed by one of the largest integrators in our business. And they had started with a complete solution. This was a student activity center at the University of Northern Colorado. And it was a large facility. And they had everything computerized with every piece of equipment tied into the network coming back. And the budget was about twice what they wanted to spend. And they came back to us and we said, well, let's look at this. And we broke out the systems that really didn't require control, exercise rooms, that kind of thing. We ended up putting a bunch of TOA 9000s in those rooms. There's plenty of local control for them. There was no need for them to be networked. And we saved the end user about $300,000 on the job, and they were very, very, very happy. So if you start out from a position without somebody that is familiar with those types of systems, you can get into the weeds pretty fast. And if you don't, as Jim said, if you don't specify what you want, that world-renowned and USA-renowned contractor, obviously somebody just said, make me a system, and they did. And they said, no, that'll be, $1.5 million. So.
Yeah, all good points. We want to make sure we get as much information as we can from the customer, make sure they're not holding back any information. Besides getting a project on our hands that was either wrongly designed or overly designed, sometimes there's projects that are under-designed where we have to maybe add something to it to make it work. Especially today where our business has kind of shifted and the ways people are using our products are different. We've had a lot of requests of adding on things or making things work with the web or getting things over the web or the net in terms of audio. So yeah, all awesome points. Let's go over to Ian. And Ian, real quick. So overly complex, Swiss Army knife AV systems and projects are like far too common in schools and classroom installations. You being the school guy, Ian, is that something you've had to deal with throughout your career? And how are you able to simplify it, especially when it comes to schools where the end user is, they just want to walk in there and press a button and make it work? How are you able to simplify these types of installations?
Well, I think a lot of our integrators know that the first part of dealing with getting a project deployed the most straightforward way is really to have the conversation with the end user and set their expectations. There's no doubt in my integration history, I've allowed a client to dictate how complicated they want something because they might want to use a room this way or they might want to use a room that way. And even though it's practically never really deployed that way, they want every potential permutation. So really understanding what the primary need is and then getting the client to understand how simplification is going to help them. One product that I really wanted to get into, kind of into the nitty-gritty a little bit, is our M9000. It is really sort of a Swiss Army knife to me. I've got a unit configured here, so I'm going to switch my camera around a little bit and go through some of the advantages to M9000. This carries across, by the way, to a lot of our mixer amplifier products that use modules. All right, hopefully everybody can see this. What we're looking at here is the back of an M9000. And for those of you who are not familiar with M9000, it's capable of 8 inputs and 8 outputs. So these modules right here, let me go ahead and grab my pointing finger here. So we've got Phoenix connectors, pair of Phoenix connectors here. So input number 1 and number 2, that's one of our input boards. We have another input board here utilizing RCAs that get summed together. So we've got the ability to tie in microphone and line level inputs very simply. And this could be all that we utilize, right? We could just do 2 inputs. We could do 4 inputs. We could do a mixture of those. Next to this, though, is a module, and this is a new module for us. This is the WTU M9800. This is a wireless receiver module. So if I've got a handheld or a belt pack transmitter, and I would like to have some wireless microphone communication directly into my mixer, this is a way to do it. Right next to this is an input port that has this LAN connector on it. And this is actually a SIP interface card. What that means is that I could take a SIP-based phone system and tie this in for paging out to my various zones. And I can actually page in and dialing into a particular number, tell it what zone I'd like to communicate with. We've got several more output and control modules available. And down here all the way at the end is a 9-pin. That's an RS-232 port. And what's great about having 9-pin RS-232 is that an external module like this guy here that comes from Kramer, which has a couple of serial ports on it, or another module like this little Wi-Fi gadget right here that also has serial port on it, that would allow us to control the M9000 remotely. And for instance, we've got a very nice, easy little interface screen here, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it too well, so I'm going to switch this over in a moment. But this is an iPad. Hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better now.
Yep, perfect.
This is a simple control panel interface that I can run on this iPad. I've got various, you can see I'm controlling my input level controls here. I set this up for 8 inputs. I've got it set up for a couple of outputs. I've got presets along the right-hand side. And this was done in a software utility, which is called On Controls. But listen, whether you're doing AMX, Xtron, Crestron, Kramer Control, On Controls, there are a whole vast array of third-party controllers that would let you simply point to your IP address of your control interface and using M9000 RS-232 command capability, fully control this mixer. And if anybody's interested in simple iPad control, we can make this accessible for you to utilize as sort of a testing opportunity to utilize this. Now, I've used M9000 in a variety of different applications, typically small conference rooms, but I've also even done gymnasiums and some larger conference rooms. Let me go ahead and stop this here for a second. All right. Give me 1 second and I'll get my camera back up here. There we go. Get my camera back on. You guys let me know if I'm back on.
You're good.
Okay, great. So these are some of the types of interfaces that we can utilize on M9000, control capability that we can utilize. And I just happen to think that this particular product is really, as I mentioned before, and I like to use that term, the Swiss Army knife, because it can fit into so many different applications. I think we really are probably going to have to do a complete webinar at some point on 9000 and everything that it can do. Because, of course, TOA makes some very simple wall controllers that allow us to select multiple inputs and control volume as well. And likewise, the MA725 is another product we can probably do a full webinar when we get back next year. Because once again, we've got web interfaces for that, remote control interfaces, and the ability to control, lots of zones very, very easily. I think that's one of the greatest powerful tools about all of our products. I think it's important to point out, though, here, right, that 2 of the interfaces that we were just looking at, the WTU module, the SIP module, those are not specific to the M9000. You could put those in an old 900 series or a new 800 series or into a BG series amplifier. So those modules are really very, very flexible to take even the most basic of interface of TOA solutions, right? Our basic package mixers, amplifiers, and turn them into paging systems and wireless microphone systems.
Excellent, Ian, excellent. And going to the WTU module, going back to that real quick. I think that's a super easy, flexible option where that can become a Swiss Army knife in a situation where you might have an empty module slot on a unit, plug that guy in, and there you go. You get a full wireless system ready to rock.
That's right.
Play. Yeah,
that's absolutely right. Now, this is where, contacting TOA, to our product support folks and system design folks, people just like Jim McGinnis, where you'll have a conversation about that kind of an application. And he's going to begin to manage the inquiry of what zip code is this being utilized in? How many microphones are we needing? Let's check the FCC frequency, make sure we're okay with that. So we get this product either specified or maybe a different TOA wireless microphone specified for that particular application.
Absolutely. Jim, going to you real quick. From a system design perspective, when would you start to have a conversation with a client about the benefits of using modules?
Well, it comes from your initial question set to find out what are the expected operation of the system and what features and functions they want. So once we get a list of ideas of what they want to do ultimately, they may ask for the for the universe, we get them up into the stars someplace with some of the questions. And then once you define everything, we can then offer various options for a particular application. Sometimes we need, let's say, transformer decoupling in a situation. So we might talk about an L or a B series module, depending on what we need there. Our mic input modules for our 900 systems are all transformer decoupled. And then, as Ian already emphasized, we have the SIP modules now. We have the wireless tuner in M1 band. Incidentally, one thing to point out, we do have antenna extenders. So one thing to bring up is sometimes, we forget that some of this equipment ends up being locked up in a steel cabinet, which is opportune for the antennas hanging off the back. So we do sell the YW4500Q for that particular series. So now you can extend your antennas out into the space so that you won't have any issues with pickup. But those are just some examples. I mean, we have 900 series like a U14R, which does an automatic priority, basically. It's BGM and juke. The idea would be is you're in a local diner here in New Jersey. I mean, diners are all over the place. So, you put a quarter in the jukebox and now the house audio, switches over to whatever you've chosen. I mean, it's that kind of concept. But we have a lot of different modules for applications. And again, it's the slicing and dicing of the information. As Ian pointed out, the 9000 is a go-to piece for us because it does so many things at once and can take not only its own modules, but the 900 series modules as well, almost all of them. And so between combinations, we can create equipment and applications that a lot of companies can't. So we can create a custom system that doesn't exist out of the can type of application. And as it was touched on, we apply this to some of our single channel amplifiers from an input standpoint for the BG series, the A series, 900 series. So we can configure many different combinations to get the job done.
Thanks, Jim. Good stuff. Hey, Ian and Dan, is anybody else wondering what is behind Jim? Is that a portal of some sort? What's going on there?
It's the RF testing laboratory right there.
There you go.
All right, Dan, going over to you, staying on the module side of things, is there a time where maybe you wouldn't advise the use of modules in a system versus acknowledging modules? Any examples you can think of?
Sure. For example, if we have a system like a simple system with a SIP phone interface to page out to a wide area, and you've got a lot of places to page out there, that's the traditional way to do it. But we have some equipment now. We're moving a little bit more into the security side of things. We're becoming friendlier with camera video management systems and some of the audio codecs that are used in those. So we have a IP horn available now, where instead of running out speaker lines to those areas, everything would be done on the network. You can assign an IP address and directly do it that way, or you can do it via a SIP server. Plus, if you're doing messaging, instead of having one central digital message repeater, those horns have onboard memory storage for messages. Jim, do you know the message limit on the
20 new one.
Sorry?
Up to 20 on the new one.
Great. So 20 messages of reasonable length. You can get it triggered if your camera has a proximity sensor on it. There's a dry contact on the bottom of the horn, and you can warn people off. You can do it automatically and take it away from that traditional centralized PA system. In that case, you wouldn't particularly need the SIP module. You'll be plugging those into your SIP system and assign each horn an endpoint. The other reason for not using modules if you're using something that's going into something that would be used for broadcast or professional applications. We have plenty of those, and they use different modules. So it's actually, if you use the right module for the job, then I have nothing against modules. For example, our D2000s, D901s, those are all broadcast quality, terrific A to D and D to A on those. But generally, pro stuff, you're going to have some form that's not going to have a modular base on it. Hope that's clear.
Yeah, clear enough. Excellent. All right, guys. As you can see,
one thing I wanted to throw in there for a second, because sorry to step on you there. Dan mentioned, the IP paging horn, right? And it brings up a factor that no matter what sound solution you want to work with, whether it be an in-ceiling speaker, a wall speaker, paging horns, our speaker horns, which are a little bit different. Here's another area where harnessing the technical prowess of folks like Jim and Dan comes in really handy for field integrators. And I'll give you a quick for instance, right? We get contacted all the time with simple line drawings of a facility that needs speaker coverage. So exactly where do you begin with that? So I'll give you a quick for instance here, if I can just share my screen. Okay, here's a screen layout or a line drawing of a facility that was provided. And each one of these blue dots represents a speaker. This particular large factory would work with approximately 98 of our CS304 speakers. Now that's going to help certainly from the standpoint of knowing where you're going to be deploying these. But moreover, this ease drawing that we provide actually gives you a representation of the type of signal level you can expect across that facility. In this particular case, because it's a manufacturing warehouse and it's already fairly loud, we're trying to overcome that volume. So you can see here, we're pushing into 92 and a half dB coverage. So we can be plenty loud to get over all sorts of background machinery noise in this factory. And we can provide this to you guys, no matter whether this is a small 15 by 15 foot room or a huge warehouse like this. We're looking at nearly 100 speakers. And of course, the various speakers are going to have differing results, from pendants, as I mentioned, to ceiling mount, wall mount, horns and the like. Horns are going to be very, very useful for getting very loud, but still very intelligible sound into an area like this. So, Dan, when someone comes to us and provides this sort of information, what are you looking for from them as far as the documentation so that we can get this right for them really, the first time?
We like to see as much information about the room as possible. What we're doing on these models, to be clear, is direct speaker coverage. We're not acousticians. Ease and the programs that we use have the capability of doing that. But so if you're looking for coverage, we need to know how high the room is, the width and depth of the room, the areas you're going to need to cover, what you're going to cover it with. Do you want background music in there? Do you have steel manufacturing going on there with hammers and all that? So there are a lot of things that go into it. But if you call one of our sales reps or you call in, we can certainly give you a list of items for your particular situation. But generally, width, height, length, and where you want the sound.
And it's quite nice because if we know we're talking about an office area for some background music, some simple paging, some hallways, right, we can then drop in some F-series ceiling speakers. If it's a large warehouse, we might look at pendants. We might look at speaker horns, which are a little bit different than traditional horns. They have a little bit better overall frequency response. So could, in fact, provide a little bit of background music with reasonable sound quality, but also provide a very intelligible paging solution.
Right. So let me, intelligibility, by the way, one of the things that TOA excels in, for those of you who may not know this, is life safety systems and voice evac systems. We have equipment that is UL listed for that purpose. And when you say, when we're going for intelligibility doesn't always sound great, but you can hear it and distinguish the words. So there's two different things sometimes when you're dealing with sound systems. If you have an application where you need an emergency communication systems, please keep us in mind. Back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important point, right? For life safety, it is a matter of speech intelligibility. And a horn that does not have particularly great frequency response, but reproduces voice, speech very, very clearly, or is useful for tones and sirens, very, very important, versus an application where background music and simple paging may be the most important factors. So again, we can design the solution based on the mixer, the amplifier, the speakers, the power level that's required, right? When we look at that drawing that I showed you a moment ago, and I'll go back real quick here to it. One of the nice things about this particular document is it not only shows us the layout, but comes back and says, look, that's based on the CS304 with each one of those speakers at 15 watts. And we now know, based on that we're going to then utilize a particular number. Here we go, 98 CS304s, and that we're going to need a particular wattage coming off of that amplifier to take care of this particular design. In this case, it's listed right here, room dimensions, running at 70 volt. We're going to need at least 1,470 watts to drive that solution. And that's going to help us to define how many zones we may want to work with based on the number of amplifier channels we're going to work with. So this is the type of information that's very, very important for integrators when you're thinking about your systems designs and what TOA can provide to you.
Thank you, Ian. All good stuff. So guys, as you can see, there are direct benefits to using not only modules, but a wide array of the SKUs that we offer here at TOA. We want to make sure you guys are aware that we're able to scale and meet your customers' needs in any way possible. We want to make sure that we're getting all the information from your customers. That's a huge key aspect. And we're going to deliver on a front that maybe unbeknownst to you that we can deliver at, because we have a lot of products that are able to do a lot of different things. And during these times, we're even figuring out things that we weren't aware of that could be potentially used out there in the field. So We appreciate it. Hope you guys got a lot out of this. I want to open up the floor to any questions that we might have. So if you guys have any questions, come on in. Let us know. I did see one. I believe Ian did follow up on that. That was in regards to I believe it was the Wi-Fi.
Right. They're asking about the control modules that I had shown there. Those are not TOA control modules.
Yes.
Those modules are third party. There's a variety of different companies that make control systems. And I'm not going to lean one way or another. The two that I happen to show, one was from Kramer and one was from Global Cache. The Global Caches are neat. They're inexpensive. You can get them wired or wireless. The one I happen to show had a little antenna on it, so it's actually a Wi-Fi enabled control module. Works fantastic with the 9000. And as I mentioned, for those folks that did or didn't see the iPad screen, if that is something that interests you folks, I'm happy to share that software utility with you. You can download it onto your iPad from On Controls. It's a free from the App Store. And we can certainly talk about how the 9000 can be tied in under RS-232 control for your particular application. I've done a lot of them, combining projector or display control, DVD device control, while also having your wireless microphones and all your audio inputs under full control. So fantastic tool.
Super, super flexible. Dan from Rancilio, maybe Jim or Dan can answer this. He says, I think the design should have an added 20% of headroom on the amplifier calculation. Dan or Jim, you want to chime in?
That's correct. So what they're showing you is the total wattage of the speakers on there. So then you do your calculations from there.
Cool. Okay.
Absolutely right. If it says 1500 watts, we may very well be recommending, a good 15, if not 20% higher than that, and then making the recommendation on the amplifier. Remember that we're not going to be able to customize it specifically for that wattage number. We're always going to end up making the recommendation on the expected number of channels that should be utilized. And how that's going to, listen, when you get to something like a 9000, that may require having multiple output channels added onto your 9000 as well, not just channels on the amplifier. So there's a lot of ways we can end up designing it as one big zone or multiple individual zones.
One other thing I'd like to jump in on is if you do use our SPV software, that's TOA's proprietary software, similar to the access plot that Ian was showing before. That particular software, when it calculates the power, already adds in the 20% margin.
Yeah, there you go.
Very interesting. I didn't even know that. Look at that.
So as a rule for everybody, when you buy an amplifier, buy the DA500 FHL. That's 2,000 watts. It'll work anywhere from 1 watt to 2,000 watts. Go ahead.
Right. To me, obviously, guys, I would take away from this that it's pretty clear that, coming in 2021, we're going to be setting up a lot of webinars going into maybe more specifics on what our Lenubio product does, what our Amio product does on the microphone front end, but what more about M9000 or the A800s, right? We have got a lot of other production level live reinforcement types of audio mixer systems like our 901 that I know Dan is a huge fan of. And, we haven't talked nearly enough about some of our pro sound reinforcement speakers like our full-size line arrays, our variable dispersion speakers like HX7 and HX5, which find a home in the house of worship market. Just fits like a glove because of the ability to contour for the rooms.
Excellent. Yeah, we got a lot planned for the next year. This is our last one for this year, but we are looking ahead. And like Ian said, we're going to be informing you guys about a lot of these different products that we have in mind. There could potentially be some new gear on the horizon. Maybe Dan could chip in on that. But 2021 is going to be a very exciting year for us, and we're really looking forward to it. Another question here. Let's see. I thought I saw another question. Bear with me.
What's the full list and types of modules, huh?
All right, well,
Tell you what,
that'll
why
be,
don't you, Eric, if you could maybe grab from the website, the 900 series module page, it's quite extensive.
Yeah, we do have, I don't have it pulled up, unfortunately, but we have a ton of different modules for a variety of different applications.
And of course, the 9000 series that I just talked about,
right.
Some of those are different series of modules specific for the M9000.
Right. Digital, much more flexible. Right. Oh, there it is. Drew just put up a link there for you guys. If you guys want to click that link, that is our M9800 link, which is just one of the modules that we discussed.
Right.
But we do have a ton of different modules for different applications.
Hey, Drew,
right.
Maybe you'll throw up a link to the SP11 module that we talked about as well, because that is our SIP interface module. And, one thing we didn't really touch on today was our SIP intercom system that has a master multimedia phone station as well as door stations. You can tie that directly into the SP11N, and that can be an extension for providing paging. Yep. Or, as Dan mentioned, our IP horn could be connected peer-to-peer directly to an IP horn and provide some paging out to a warehouse.
Yeah, keep it simple. If somebody has a unit of ours that accepts modules and they want paging and they have a SIP system or a VoIP system installed or going in, put that module in, you guys get paging overhead. It's that easy, it's that simple, and you're good to go. All right, guys, any other questions here? You guys see any other questions from our attendees? I think we're covered.
There was one question, I think it was a question for Jim McGinnis, whether or not the door behind him was actually a portal to another dimension.
I think we covered that, but nobody wanted to answer that.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Jim was very quiet on that.
Yeah, that's a secret door. I don't let that out of him.
Susan, now you know.
It's a direct portal access to a maglev system that takes them right to TOA headquarters.
Right to TOA headquarters. Very good. Very, very good.
All right, guys. Anything else from our team here that you guys want to conclude with, or are we good?
I'm good.
Good comments? Cool. Everybody's cool. All right. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. That wraps up today's webinar. Again, guys, if you have any questions, use the chat still. If you have something that pops up, let us know, email us, use our phone number. There's tons of ways to contact us. You'll probably either reach myself or Jim directly, or we have Andy on the line. We got a great customer service team for any of your order entry questions or anything like that. Obviously, Dan's on board for engineering, Ian's on board for sales, and we have a couple other guys that I didn't mention that are helping us out. All right. We're also launching a brand new podcast, which I'm your host of, Sound Supply. If you guys haven't been tuning in, that's a weekly podcast. We've been pretty consistent on the weekly releasing of those, and they've been great. They're just 10-minute snippets of what's going on in the industry. We do some research of the week. We pull out some information, and then I just discuss on it and be as real as possible with it. And that has been a great addition to our digital marketing here. So be on the lookout for that next year. We are continuing that, and those have been a lot of fun. Everyone who attended today will receive an email with the link to our newest season of the podcast. So if you guys signed up via Zoom, you're going to get a link for all the information coming up, including our podcast information, any webinar information that we have coming up for January. Please be on the lookout. We can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. This has been our biggest turnout of the year. It's our last one of the year, so we appreciate everyone that's here. Good questions, great feedback. We're doing this for you guys, so keep that in mind. We want to make sure that we're giving you the information you want. If not, this doesn't make any sense. So we want to make sure we're giving you guys what you want to hear. And it seems like it's working so far. So keep those incoming, keep those questions incoming, and we appreciate it. We have been very active on our social pages. Jim, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I said pass the word to all your contractors.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Also, if you guys, a lot of you guys, I recognize a lot of the names in here. I see some new names, which is fantastic. Make sure you're spreading the word. Let your teams know, let your customers know about this free information that we're providing you guys. And, we want to see more people in here. We want to see some new faces and let us all learn about TOA and what we can offer you guys going forward. We are very active now. During this whole time, we picked up our social campaigns, and we're running information on all of our channels: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm missing one, but we're everywhere. So
Twitter.
again, what was that?
Can't forget Twitter.
But I don't think we have a Twitter. We might have Twitter. But anyways, I'd like to thank everybody that's in attendance, our attendees. If you guys, again, have any questions, leave your email in the chat. You can actually, if you want to do that, put your email down with a question. One of us will follow up. Thanks for attending. Happy holidays. If you're in Jersey or in the Northeast, stay safe. I know there's a storm coming. It's like pitch black outside right now. It's freezing cold. And Ian's down in Florida. He's laughing. Ian.
80 degrees down here.
There you go, man. Florida's nice. Again, guys, have a fantastic holiday. Happy New Year.
Peace.
And we'll see everybody next year. We'll probably see some of you guys soon, but we'll see you guys next year. Thanks for tuning in, and take care. Bye, guys.